Kids, good evening. This is my vlog for February the 20th, 2013, and how are you? My, how time is flying. It flew all last year, it's flying again. I guess part of the reason it flies so quickly is because I sleep so much. That's the only thing I can think. I've never seen time move so quickly. Um, it just seems like I can still kind of vaguely remember waking up kind of last year after a series of extreme medical changes and tests and all kinds of stuff, and trying to make sense of what was going on with my life. And now it's whoosh, a year later, and whoosh, whoosh. Um, I mean, it was just Christmas a few weeks ago, it seems like. Um, so what's going on this week that's on my mind? Well, let me tell you. I am sick of this. Every day I wake up and I have to read about more gun fun. Every single day someone's getting shot or multiple people are getting shot across the country. Since that really tragic incident in December at the elementary school, nearly 2,000 people have died at the hands of guns just in a few months. 2,000 people, almost. 1,900 and something, I forget the last count. But that's nearly 2,000 people. And that's just in a few months. That's hysterical. And I'm getting tired of reading it, frankly. It's getting like, it's like the world's gone nuts. Now, besides that, I have the hardest time. Now, I grew up with some dear friends that I feel like are family that are Catholics. And I never really had a bad perception of the Catholic Church. My father always didn't like the Catholic Church, but he never said why. But I never had a perception one way or another about Catholics. They just seemed like everybody else to me. They acted like everybody else to me. They didn't seem to be extremist or anything. I had a Catholic girlfriend in high school who, I guess later in life, decided she was to become like this extremist Catholic from hell. I don't get that because she wasn't that in high school. But suddenly she's clinging on to this religion like it's in an unhealthy way. And the Catholic Church for years and years now, going on a decade, has nothing but bad news rolling out practically on a weekly basis about the evils of the Catholic Church. Pedophilia in the Catholic Church, sins of all natures, corruption, money laundering, you name it. All kinds of things. Buying off politicians, killing people, etc., etc., etc. Really just seems to be this like really evil institution. And now the Pope's quitting, and which is adding more drama onto the Catholic Church. Because if you look in the Bible, there's nothing that says there should be anything called a pope, and it has no acknowledgement of anything called a pope. But in the Catholic faith, that's very important. And apparently I have asked around and online, and I've heard that Catholics that have gone to catechism were taught that wherever the Bible and the church disagreed, the church ruled. So that's interesting that the church, a man-made structure, overrules the rules of God. Now, it seems to be a conundrum to me, at least psychologically and logically, if the Pope is infallible and the only communicator with God, and he decides to quit, not only is he giving the finger to his church, but he's giving the finger to God. But that still doesn't make him infallible, even though he's retired. Because there's no such thing in anything that I know that says that when you retire, suddenly at that precise second, your infallibility just falls apart. In other words, your crystal cord to God just gets snapped, and then you become any other human being. And they're going to have to deal with this because it hasn't happened for like 700 years. And usually 700 years ago, they just locked them up in the dungeon and poisoned them. So it really wasn't a big controversy. They didn't have CNN on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or any other cable news network. So this is going to be interesting to see how the Catholics get around this. Now, also in the meantime, when the Pope resigns, and from what I'm hearing, he's going to make an infallible change in the doctrine of the church so that they could speed up the process of making a new Pope. And even though he's already said he's resigning, he's still infallible and he can still do that, supposedly until February 28th. But in the case that they don't get a new Pope and he's resigned and the church goes into some unforeseen crisis, can they still turn to him and his infallibility for help? This is a good question. I've been pondering this. And no one seems to have an answer. And the other answer I want to know is, what does an ex-pope wear? Do they have a special garment for the ex-pope? Or do they just make new garments for the new pope? And he just keeps his old drag and they make new drag for a new pope? I don't know. Hard to say. So we'll see how that rolls out. But if anybody has any ideas, please feel free to comment, either on YouTube or Facebook, because I really want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. What else is going on? Let's see. We have guns. We have the Catholic Church. We have this really weird situation I was reading online today where kids are making bombs out of plastic bottles to blow people's fingers up. Sounds terrorizing for little monsters of America to be doing that to other people, to us oldsters who are just trying to keep our yards clean. That was weird. And apparently they're selling themselves drugs that are like a mix of like 5 different drugs and just making themselves absolutely nuts and killing themselves after 5 doses, which I think is better than blowing my fingers off, frankly. So, you know, if I had a choice, let your little monster take some drugs and kill themselves, because I don't have insurance and I frankly don't care. Sorry. Now, another thing, I had the wonderful opportunity the other day to come out of complete retirement, and for a social gathering I got to do some readings with my cards, and it was really fun. It was nice to be able to tune in and channel without charging, and just allow, without filter, information to flow. And for all intents and purposes and feedback, it seemed to go pretty well. So, I mean, a little intense, but then again, I've never claimed not to be intense. I have this penchant for making people cry. Hopefully in a cathartic, therapeutic way, not in a bad way. But yeah, I do have this reputation for making people cry. And the other day was no different. Tears flowed. But that was nice, and it was nice to get out of my shell in my box and talk to some human beings, as opposed to just sitting here quietly all by myself with my animals being nuts and talking to ghosts. So, and speaking of ghosts, kids, I have a ghost story for you. This one is great. This one is great. This one came through the window today. Normally I have my little girl ghost. I have 2 turtle ponds in my living room. So picture 2 huge ponds with a turtle in each pond and a fish in each pond to keep each other company. So they just kind of swim around. They've got rocks and shells, and they've got a little water fountain fall and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very zen-like, because turtles are very zen. So my whole living room is like this aqua diva extravaganza with rocks and all the kinds of stuff. And normally there's a little girl ghost that somebody once came and left at my house, which seems to be attached now to my turtle pond. She usually comes between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. or somewhere thereabouts, and she'll show up every single day, 1 to 5 times, depending on how active she is. Well, today, about 10 a.m., I had cracked open a window, and there was a banshee outside. And I don't know if you know what a banshee is, but they're not cute. They're really ugly, and they're horrible, and they scratch and they scream. And they're nasty creatures. And this banshee came screaming through the window and set my dogs on fire. Set my dogs on fire. They are all like up, backs arched, fur up, growling, barking, carrying on like nobody's business. And the cool thing was the little girl ghost grabbed, as the banshee came through and passed over her pond, she manifested and grabbed the banshee by the hair and threw it back out the window. That was really, really cool. That was super exciting today. And we had 2 rounds of banshee versus little girl ghost today at my house this morning. So that surely added some excitement to my day. That and the fact that I had something else levitate in my house once again. A piece of paper levitated, just picked up, floated, and goes set down very gently right in front of me. I just sat there like, seriously? Really? It was like, actually, it was this piece of paper. And it's like stapled together. It's kind of like an envelope and a piece of paper. And it was just sitting there and it like raised up. And it just sat there and it went back down. And I wasn't even near it. It was like sitting over there on the table. So that's been my excitement this week. Now, the last thing, and I did this ponder today on Facebook, and I want you to ponder this too. We all have different cultures and languages and backgrounds and religions and all kinds of stuff. And I've been traveling around the world, and I worked at an international airport, a very busy international airport, for many, 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 many years, dealing with lots of different cultures from lots of different places from all over the world, from Asia to Europe to Africa to everywhere in between, and South America, North America, different states even. Now, the one thing you can translate literally is a salient thought, a serious thought, or anger. You can literally translate those, and people will understand you without any hesitation. Now, it's universal for people to get pissed off, and that translates universally. But the other thing that's universal is laughter and smiles. And while you can maybe smile at someone and they'll smile back at you universally, perhaps, but in some cultures that's considered fresh and they get shy and they'll hide behind trees or whatever. Comedy and jokes are not so easily translated. What's funny to someone, if you literally translate it to somebody else, makes no sense. And they don't get it. It's not part of their culture. I've seen it happen not only in my own life, many times, not only just with casual acquaintances, but actually with, romantic, multi-year partners. Some things just don't translate well. Sarcasm, dry humor particularly, is very difficult to translate unless you're really, really, really good at speaking both languages. And even then, sometimes culturally, it's just not funny on the other side. So my ponder today is, how do we break down this wall? Because there's nothing more healthy and more human and more wonderful than a good hearty laugh. And if we can piss each other off without translation problems, why can't we make each other laugh without translation problems? So those are my thoughts for today, and I'll talk to you later.